The application of management techniques to laboratory practice, while maintaining a patient-centered perspective, is a business model that reflects the rapidly changing and extremely challenging world of healthcare. Dr. Naresh tells us what he did to drive the mandate of change when he was leading the pathological department of a major hospital in Singapore.
See, healthcare is traditionally considered away from managerial or business sort of categories. It's not really a business, although it is a business. It's a business of delivering a cure to the patient, and that transforms into a situation where a cure has to be researched, the product has to be made, product then has to be sold to the providers who are the doctors, and the doctors then have to give that product to the patient. So it is in effect a business chain. There's a R&D, which is the research and development. Then there is a manufacturing unit, which is where the drugs are made. And then there's marketing. So actually healthcare is a large business and in that sense. So that management which requires to do all the steps has to undergo the same processes or the same transformations like any other business. A change underpins progress effectively within healthcare, and it's an ever-changing environment. What was sort of rare 50 years back is a common test now. But then there are small pockets which require an acute transformation. An acute transformation happens when you have a process which needs to move from point A to point B. An example, since I'm laboratory based, an example would be converting from a full paper environment to a paperless environment. Now, I was in charge at that point where I worked previously. I was in charge of the laboratory, being the clinical director. And one of the tasks that we faced was quality of work that was being produced. Now, what happens is we get specimens which are attached with a requisition form. So the requisition form travels with the specimen until the specimen is processed, and then a report is generated which is again paper based, and then that report is conveyed to the doctor. So the entire chain is paper based. It's great if it is one specimen only, because then it is easier to do it. However, when you've got tens and hundreds of specimens being done on a daily basis by different people to be catered for different organizations and different places, then it becomes difficult to control the quality. So that was the driver for changing that paper-based to a paperless base. When we implemented it, we realized that there were various stages to be taken care of. Not really, we thought that, okay, fine, we'll just go get a software, implement it, and everybody would be fine. But not so, because we found that there were various people with different levels of acceptance, different levels of resistance, different levels of expertise using the computers, as basic as that. And all of that had to be factored. Essentially what we decided was that it was not going to be a top-down directive, but an engagement of people right from bottom up. The management did get to speak to everybody. They decided that they were going to talk about the whole process as a group. However, appoint people who would be responsible for areas. Now that gave a structure to the entire system. Now the people who were appointed in that were actually involved in procuring the system. So they were engaged in it right from day one. They were the ones who had produced documents which required specifications on the system. I was one of them because I was looking at the output-based specification document, which allowed me to decide what I needed of the system. So I was 100% engaged in it. Now being committed 100% and being involved from day step produced that kind of vibe to others that I was committed, I was leading it, and whatever group was assigned to me would then get that feedback. It was the body language part of the commitment that got imbibed into people who were not yet accepting it. When they felt comfortable that, right, we have people who are engaged and 100% behind the process, they started looking at specifications of the system, because there were technical issues which they were not accepting, and their acceptance on technical issues was from the discomfort which arises from change. Essentially, change leads to a loss of ability to having what you have been working for last several years is going to change, and that produces a bit of a fear, a bit of discomfort. So once they got engaged into the process without actually implementing it, they were comfortable. They said, fine, these are the steps which we can achieve and probably we'll benefit from them. Once they saw that benefit, everything flows smoothly. And they became now 100% committed. And their body language then went down to the next group. And that cascaded the change. And that was a very important insight into the whole process. Because what it led to was a communication. I mean, all it required was correct communication in the right people, in the right manner, and that would achieve it. And it's not about, yes, of course, the management could have bought the system and implemented it, and everybody would have been forced to it. But you would have had a disgruntled team, you would have loss of productivity, it would have taken more time achieving what we were achieving. So I think communication led to a huge benefit, and that helped a lot.